I am Naomi Kingston, a National Vice President of National Council of Jewish Women Canada, an organization with a proud history of being a voice for Jewish women in Canada for 127 years. It is my pleasure to welcome you all this afternoon to the first of our series of 3 webinars, Women on the Front Lines. Thank you all for attending, and a heartfelt thank you to our supporting organizations, Allied Voices of Israel, the Canadian Anti-Semitism Education Foundation, Canadian Women Against Anti-Semitism, Stand With Us Canada, and Hillel, Ontario. We would also like to welcome the Honorable Morris Fish of the Supreme Court of Canada. I would like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of the lands we are on today. While we meet virtually, it is important to recognize and respect for all the lands we each call home. This acknowledgement reaffirms our commitment and responsibility to improving relationships between nations. Today, we will be honored and excited to welcome our panel to discuss firsthand experiences in Israeli women's voices, stories from the front line. Our interviewer will be the Executive Director of National Council of Jewish Women, Toronto, Robin Gofine. Robin is educated as both a lawyer and a social worker. She has been working in the Jewish community of Toronto for over 25 years and has led projects with local, national, and international impact. She has held leadership roles in both professional and lay capacities. Robin will be interviewing Tal Oron-Gilad, a full professor in the Department of Industrial Engineering and Management, the George Shrut Chair of Human Performance, and the Vice Dean for the Engineering Sciences Faculty of Ben-Gurion University. Tal is the author of numerous articles and conference presentations and has supervised many graduate students. Her research has been continuously funded by the U.S. Army Research Lab, General Motors, the Israeli Ministry of Science, and the Israeli Innovative Authority. Tal lives in a moshav in the northwestern part of the Negev, adjacent to Nir Oz, which was attacked on October 7th. We also will be joined by Hadass Reisman, a master's degree student in human factors engineering in the Department of Industrial Engineering at Ben-Gurion University. Hadass actively served in the reserves as an ordnance officer in a reserve brigade. Please welcome everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's really my pleasure and my honor to be conducting this interview. In addition to Tal's bio and my own, I can say that Tal is my very dear cousin. And I have spent a lot of time with her, most recently at her son's wedding on the beautiful property where she lives and really in the heart of the area that was attacked. And when our leadership, when National Council of Jewish Women's leadership was thinking about who could be on the front line, we all concluded that it was critically important that there be Israeli women's voices heard. And it's particularly true because since October the 7th, what happened on that day will go down in history as one of the great disasters that happened toward the Jewish people and humanity. It's a day that saw murder in its most brutal form, hostage taking, and unprecedented sexual violence perpetrated by Hamas against 1,200 innocent victims in Israel. And our prime motivation in this series, which you will be part of over the coming months, is really to address the disinformation campaign, the lies that are being told. And the way to dispel those lies is truly by hearing stories, hearing people's firsthand experience, and ensuring that all of you can tell your friends, your families, your colleagues, your people in your communities the truth. And it's really that idea that's motivating all of us to bring this information to you. So on behalf of all of us, we want to thank you, Tal, and you, Hadass, for taking the time to join us this afternoon. In order to give our participants a sense of up close and personal and really get to gain a sense of what it was like for you, what it's like for you to be living where you are today in the south of Israel, in Israel, and also what happened on October the 7th. I wanted first to ask, I'll start with Tal and then I'll ask Hadass to respond as well. Where are you currently physically, and where do you both live and study? And just describe that for our participants. Tal, I'll start with you.
Okay, so thank you everybody for having me, and I invited Hadass to join me, and I hope you will enjoy her as much as I enjoy her as my student. Currently, I'm speaking to you from my home. I live in a small village, Moshav. It's called Nir Moshe. It's right behind Sderot, and if someone is interested, and if you'll see many votes, I can upload a map just to show you where it is, and perhaps show some of the proportions. Robin is waving, so I'm gonna do it. Okay, so this is the northwestern part of the Negev, but in this particular map that I put here, you can see the entire Gaza Strip. You can see where Tel Aviv is. It's 75 kilometers away. You living in big Canada can imagine what 75 kilometers means, not much. And this is where I am right now, this little blue dot right here. And this is where I work, Beersheba, and I think that Hadass is even living there. I commute. It takes me about 30 minutes to commute from here to here. But most of my life as a civilian, not as is around this area. So the city of Sderot and the city of Netivot, which is here, and you can't see right now. This is where I live, and this is where I do my shopping. And this is exactly the area that was attacked on October 7. I'll use another map. It's a zoom. It's a zoom to this little corner that I showed here, this little corner here. So this is the road. And when I go to the gym, I go through the fields. I drive the dirt road. And this is my house. And as you can see, my village is so small, it's not even on the map. So this is telling a story of where I live. And I'll let Hadass explain about her life.
Thank you, Tal. Hadass, tell us where you live and where you go to school, and a little bit about yourself and your family life and what you're up to.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, I'm originally from Haifa, which is a northern city of Israel, is in the north. But for the last 5 years, I lived in Beersheba, near the university with my boyfriend. And yeah, it's like 50 minutes drive to the border with Gaza. And today I came from the reserve, which is even closer, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to take you both back to October the 7th. And Tal, I'm going to start with you, and I want to ask you, what is your recollection of that day? And how did you wake up? How did you first become aware of the attacks that were taking place? And what was that like for both yourself and for your family?
Okay, so I'm going to go back to the map. And the main reason I want to go back to the map is because my husband and I, every Shabbat, we go to Zikim Beach. Every single Shabbat. We are regulars. There are about 20, 30 people that are regulars at Zikim Beach. every Shabbat. And we go through the fields. He takes his bike, and later on I take the dirt roads and follow him with a car. That morning, we usually go around 6 o'clock in the morning. That morning, we decided to take 30 minutes late to give ourselves another 30 minutes because we just got back from a travel and we were very tired. These 30 minutes saved our life because when Amir was on his bike at 6:30 in the morning and the bombing started, he said, I'm not going to Zikim this morning, I will just stay home. And from that moment, talking about 6:30 in the morning, around 7:10, we already realized that we are in one of the worst disasters that ever happened. What happened between 6:30 in the morning and 7:10 was another student of mine with her family was camping near Ofakim, and they got all the bombing, and they called me hysterically in the morning, and I said, come to us because we have a big safe room. 5 minutes later, Amir got a message from Sderot, from the police. He's volunteering in the civilian patrol. There is a problem in Sderot. There were terrorists. Nukhba attacked the police. They stole police cars. The police cars may not be police cars. Beware. So I call her back and I say, no, you don't come to my house. So she says to me, okay, so we'll go to Ofakim. That's the nearest town. We'll go to one of the big shelters. I don't want my kids to be in the open with all the mortars and the shelling. And I say 2 minutes later, no, because we already know that there is a problem in Ofakim too. 7:10 in the morning, we already know that there are a Nukhba in Yachini. I just want to show you again, just so that you realize this is where I live. This is Yachini. 700 meters separate between my village and Yachini. And our friend lost 6 members of his family here. So all the men, including my husband, who had no weapons, went running with the few guns we had, left me home with the children of the neighbor and 2 machetas because they didn't have a safe room and their kids were scared, and they all left to go to help in Yachini. So you can imagine all this happened around 7:15 in the morning. And from that moment on, it just got worse and worse.
Hadass, thank you, Tal, for sharing that. And I hope it's not too difficult for you to relive that story in those moments.
I think it's important for people to hear it and to see that, we are alive. So we are the lucky ones.
Hadass, I'm going to go to you and ask you the same question. Where were you and what did you hear? How did you hear about it? And what did you do at that time?
Yeah. So fortunately, I was in my grandmother's house with my cousins and with my boyfriend, and we didn't believe anything. I was shocked. Even
where does your grandmother live?
In Haifa, in the north.
Okay.
In Haifa. And when I say in the north, it's like 2 hours drive. It's not that far away from Gaza or from the south. And we were shocked. And I remember my sister showing me a picture of her friend who is missing. And I told her, don't worry, she will be back. We will find her. There's no way she's dead or anything. There's no, just, I couldn't believe it. And my grandmother, who immigrated from Iraq in the 1950s, after the persecution of Jews there, she also couldn't believe it with her own experience in life. And so, yeah, and there were messages that we should go to the reserve, and I knew that I was supposed to go, and they had one day later I was called, and we we'll discuss this also.
Yeah. Oh, I just want to mention one more thing because I forgot. Between learning about Ofakim and Sderot and finding out that our best friend's brother and other five members of the family were killed, around 7 and 3 minutes, a car came into our village. And you saw our village is very small, but someone gave them like a point, a location. 3 guys, Nova survivors. They came with like a daddy's car, a fancy car, but the car was like a complete wreck. And they told the weirdest story. We were chased by terrorists on motorcycles, and we hit them, and we that's how we got here. They were a little tipsy. They didn't know exactly. It sounded like they were making it all up, but this was 7 and 3 minutes. So that's another event that happened within this 40 minutes that I said before.
So I'm going to go back to Hadass, and I'm going to ask you to continue to tell us your story of serving in the IDF. And specifically, I'd asked Tal, we want to hear what life was like, and we'll get to that, and continues to be like where you live. But of course, we're so interested in your service in the IDF. We're so proud of your service in the IDF, and we want to hear from you about that experience, what it is that you were doing or have been doing as a reservist, and what the future plans are in terms of your service. And also, I'm interested in learning more about how this has impacted your education and your studies at the university.
Okay. Okay, so the next day I was called to reserve, and I remember the driving to the base, 2 hours of driving, and as I get closer to the area of the war, I see the roads are blocked and that cars are burnt, and the area is not yet it was before, of course. It's just 1 day after, and there are terrorists still around. And my job is, I'm an ordnance officer, and basically what I do as a reservist is that I'm collecting all the data and information about the maintenance of the armored vehicles and the weapons that we have. And I'm making sure that they're available and ready to be used, and that they're not that they are all fixed and available. Yeah. But the first few weeks weren't doing my job. They were to identify corpus. So, yeah, sorry for my English. Corpus, I would say. And
Corpse.
Yeah, identify corpse, and clearing the area from the cars that were burnt, and finding the terrorists that they were still there. And after those few weeks, my baggage entered Gaza and started the war, started their job. Yeah, and what is your, can you have another question that I can?
Well, I'm going to ask you a question related to something you just said. It took my breath away to hear you say what you were redeployed to do, from taking stock and inventory to actually identifying the bodies. And one thing that comes to my mind is to ask you whether there was any preparation or training before you were assigned to that role, and whether there was or has been ongoing support to help you process what you saw during that time.
Okay, so I wasn't myself identifying any corpse, but the mission of my brigade was to do that, and the people that were around me did that job, and they were obviously knew how to do it, and they were and there were professionals and that were trained, but this is the mission of the brigade, so it's my job to have all the to be a part of it in some way. Yeah.
And do you feel that there were adequate supports, emotional and supports around you during that period?
We had each other. And I think that everyone in Israel needed support at that time. I think that it doesn't matter what you did, you needed support. It was so terrifying. So it didn't matter what you did. You just, this was the job. This is what we had to do. It was better than hearing the news, I think. It was better than hearing about far away from that and just hearing and just can't do anything about it.
Tal, I'm going to come back to you, and I'm going to ask you about the young adult children. Can you talk a little bit about what they were doing during this period? And I know one or two were in active service and a boyfriend was in service. So just tell a little bit about what was going on in your world.
So maybe just to give the magnitude, and also as my role as the deputy dean, maybe that will explain the magnitude of what happens, because we have about 5,000 engineering students, and of those 5,000, 60% were immediately enrolled and enlisted. So we're talking about the vast majority of people being called. And of course, my two sons were also called exactly like Hadass on the day after, not on that day. And my eldest son stayed until I think the end of February, so quite a while. And now we're seeing a second cycle of recruitment of soldiers again. So it's very, very difficult also for the people that are experiencing it, because it's returning. Also for the parents, of course, especially if you have to send more than one sibling, and also the friend and the husband of the child, and it's not, that's what Hadass said, it's exactly like that. And this also caught us unguarded in the terms we didn't have enough we didn't have rifles, long rifles, we didn't have pistols in the area. And about a week after it happened, people who lived like us, that more than 7 kilometers, all of a sudden we were the front. So, and there was still a lot of action going on here and there. You found someone, a terrorist, and it took quite a while. So yes, it's a disaster, and also in the sense of a university. This is terrible. A university lost many people, and entire families of people that worked, employees. We had hostages from the university, so it was a major event. We have about 3% of our students are either wounded or are survivors of the Nova, or are evacuated from their homes, or lost an immediate family member. So this is still an event that is ongoing.
And I'm going to take you now to, I have a few general questions for both of you, and then we'll spend the rest of the time together. Debbie Wasserman is going to be fielding questions from the participants in the program. So one of the questions that I have for both of you, and again, thank you so much for being so generous and sharing your experiences with us. And it's difficult to listen to. I'm sure it's difficult to talk about, but it's so important to tell the truth and for people to know what happened. And we greatly appreciate it. And what I wanted to ask you, I'll start with Hadass, and then I'll ask the same question to Tal. What's your ongoing and greatest fear about the situation in Israel currently? That's for Hadass.
Yeah. So I think that as a kind of young person, I want to start a family in Israel. And I do have a fear of having children, and maybe they will have to go, probably they will have also to go to the army and also to risk their lives. And that's one fear that I have. What else? Also that where would I live? Like if this will continue, and maybe we will have a war also with Hezbollah, that it might happen. Every city is a target, and it's also scary. And it's yeah, I have this fear also. I wish that we will always be able to defend ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We will have that, the legitimacy, the legitimate to defend ourselves.
And just related, and I'm going to ask Tal the same question. What are you hopeful about, if anything?
Yeah, so I'm hopeful. First of all, I think that the Israeli people are very first, like they're trying to do the best. They try to bring Israel to be united. Not only Jews, like all Israel, all Israeli people want to be together, want to live in peace, and that is very like optimistic thinking. Like my friends, my family, all of my friends that also reserve and doing amazing job in defending Israel. We all want peace. And it's amazing. It's like the best feeling. And yeah, that's what I'm hopeful about.
Tal, tell me what's your greatest fear and what are you hopeful about?
Okay, so I will go back to my slides just because I don't want to show you the bad things I already have. I made slides of those, and I do want to remind you of the hostages because, Noah Gamani, for example, is a student in my faculty, and we really want her to see her on a scooter with friends and not on a scooter with Nukhba terrorists. And Doron, for example, was our veterinary's nurse, and we knew her personally. So we are, of course, wishing to see all these people back. But for me, for myself, this is my lovely family, my beautiful parents and my children. And I want to have a good life here in Israel. And the reason I put my grandmother is because she knew life in Europe wasn't good. And she came to Palestine in the 30s. And my parents grew up here. They were here. They were born here. And this is my mother and this is my father. So for me, this is home. So I want I want to live here. And my greatest fear is that it's going to be very hard to live here, especially in the south, but also in the north. And but I'm also like Adas, I'm very hopeful because I think that people here are wonderful. And I think that is very important. And we saw the resilience of the people, and we saw that the youth is nothing like they say. They're not lazy, they're not crazy. They are dedicated and they love their country as well. And this gives us a lot of hope.
So my last question, two questions. One is how, and I don't know if you've given thought to this, but if you were to ask of us to be helpful to you, us in the diaspora, us in Canada, what from your perspective would be helpful to Israel, to the Jewish people in Israel, to our friends and family, to all the people of Israel? I'll ask Hadass first, and then I'll ask Tal that question.
So I think probably continue doing this kind of conversation. It's very important. And also thank you for having me here. And also I think that do not be afraid of the protest that's around right now. I think that because we are a democracy and we have different opinion also within Israel, I'm not talking about the anti-Semitism, not about that. I'm talking about protest against what Israel is doing. I think that it's okay, and that it means that we are still a country that thinks about what it does, and we are not like our enemies, and it's very important, and we need to be afraid of that. And I'm sending you my love for all of this that's happening around.
Thank you. Tal.
So I do think that the connection between the diasporas and the communities abroad and in Israel needs to be very strong. And a strong Israel is also important for everywhere else, because when we are better positioned, should we say, then Jews everywhere have a better time. I think I am the most, maybe I shouldn't say, but I'm a very open person. Most offended when I hear Jews from abroad talk hate towards Israel, towards Zionism, towards being Jewish, like even though they're Jewish. I can't separate being Jewish from being a Zionist, but I accept that maybe not everybody does it, but this hate speech coming from Jews is hurtful, much more hurtful than from anyone else. I also want to ask to just continue, include us in everything that you can. Just like I tell my colleagues from academia and they ask me, what can we do to help? I say, nothing, just keep inviting me. If you want me as a keynote in your conference, invite me. Don't think twice just because now I am an Israeli and you have a problem. That's the most important thing. Just let us live. Just let us be like. And I really sympathize with what Ada said about the protests and the fact that, Israel is not speaking in one voice. This is a democratic country and we are allowed to do that. We are allowed to have our criticism. We are allowed not to agree, but we are united. And I think we are very united. We've never been this united, although it's hard to see that from the manipulative media. And I personally find it very hard to listen to the news, any news, because it's so confusing. You can hear the same event and I read starting from Al Jazeera, CNN, BBC, Der Bild, and the Israelis and everything. And you hear the same thing from very different angles. And, you have to have your truth and you have to trust Israel, I think.
Well, as two exceptional women leaders in society and also in your institutions, that's what makes me feel hopeful, to hear reasonable, thoughtful, intelligent people like yourselves who are so bravely confronting and so positively confronting without bitterness and anger, and just dealing with the situation. On behalf of all of us, we feel a tremendous debt of gratitude to you and your families and your peers and your colleagues. And we also tremendously appreciate the time that you've taken for this interview. So I'm now finished the formal part of the interview, although I still have a few extra questions. I just didn't want to hog all the time. So if people are shy, I'll put them in the chat. But at this point, I will turn the questions over to Debbie and to others who I'm sure have lots on their mind and want to hear from you as well.
Sure. I just want to say that if people want to reach out later, email, ask questions, feel free to do that.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Debbie Wasserman. I'm the immediate past president of National Council of Jewish Women of Canada. And on my own behalf, I thank you for your heartfelt discussion today with us. And we have a bunch of questions that people have been raising, so I'll field some of these questions. One of the questions is, what are your feelings toward the Gazans? What do you believe is the future of being neighbors with these people? Let's start with Tal.
Okay, so, I'm very close to them. And many of the people in the kibbutzes that were killed were peace activists who were busy driving the sick Gazan kids to hospitals, and many Gazans worked in kibbutzes and villages around this area. So the immediate feeling is a terrible feeling of betrayal, and also a big disappointment, because since 2005 they actually had Gaza for them to rule, and they could have made a better life there, and instead of making it into a terror tunnel area. I am very concerned. I cannot see how we Israelis can live here in peace if Hamas is still ruling. I mean, as I said, we are 10 minutes drive. If we live in Sderot, we are 3 minutes drive from Jabalia. This thing that happened cannot happen again. So I believe in peace, and I believe in live and let live and everything, but I'm also seeing that my own feelings are much more complicated, and I have a big trust issue now, that that the other side doesn't really want to prove me wrong, and I don't have a good solution for that. I'm still deep in that feeling.
Understandable. Hadass, how do you feel?
I agree with Tal. I think I don't have anything else to add about this. I don't know what to say.
Okay, so another question is, do you know Israelis who are not doing well emotionally since October 7th, and what is happening to help them? Hadass, you want to start?
I know many that are not doing well. Even in my family, in my own family, I think that my mother, I never seen her so upset and sad, and the way that she feels right now. I think that being together helps us. I don't know. I myself have been stressed since October 7th up until now. So I just still don't really know what to do to release the stress and to go back to normal. I think it will only take time.
Thank you. And Tal, how do you feel? And do you feel that because it's such uncertain times, is anything being resolved within people, or is it like constant stress and of the unknown?
Well, first of all, there are many people that are impacted, and it affects their performance. You have many support systems, perhaps not enough mental health support, because it's just the numbers are tremendous. Also, with the wounded soldiers, there are issues because there are so many wounded soldiers. So physiotherapy and those kind of things that are not mental issues, but are going to get it, are, all these services can definitely help. But it's also, as Hadass said, it's going to take time, and the fact that it's been going on for more than 7 months. So all of us who weren't, right in the middle of this, or think we were stronger, we're also starting to see the burnout. It's hard. It's just hard.
Go ahead.
And I can add that from my perspective as a reserve, there are many other reservists that have different life conditions, that they have children, that they have job, that they are left. And as the war continues, they have more and more struggles. And that's also a problem that we're facing right now in the army.
Is it an additional stress, all of you, what's going on politically with the government, with the demonstrations going on? Like, is that an additional stress, or it's just, no, you're shaking your head, Tal.
No, for me, it's just part of this whole chaos thing. And I think as Adas said also, it's like Israel is trying to be normal, trying to normalize the situation. And if we disagree, we'll do the protests. But it's not anything that makes a big difference. The situation is so bad that maybe it helps a few people, when they go out and they protest and they feel that they're doing what they should in a democratic country. It's absolutely okay.
Right.
Some other people don't have the mental capacity or the energy because they're doing, but that's not the issue. The issue is that the situation is so bad. That's how I feel about it. That's nothing. That's nothing. That's regular life. Give me that, I'll just take it.
Okay. You agree, Hadass?
I agree.
That is not an added. Okay. Does hearing the present fighting in Gaza cause triggers, like hearing bombing? Are you more affected now than you ever were before? Hadass,
yeah, go ahead, Hadass. I'll just put a picture.
You're talking about bombing Israel. Right?
Yes. When you hear the bombs now.
Yeah, it's terrible. I think that living in Haifa when I was a child, I've been to wars. I've been to Lebanon, Ashnia, the second Lebanon war. We were all in shelters. I celebrated my father's birthday in a shelter, and yeah. So I assume that we have to. I think that by now maybe we will be used to it, but no, I'm not used to it. I'm afraid. I was afraid when Iran attacked us, and I was here in Beersheba when they attacked, and I'm still afraid. Even though I know that, like, I have a friend which her job in reserve is to consult the Air Force about operation of the Air Dome, about operation of ballistic defense, and she's doing amazing job. It's still like unbelievably scary.
Tal, what's your feeling?
So I put this picture. It's called My Home, and you can see if something goes wrong, our soldiers have a problem. They light the area. That's in Gaza, but that's how I see it from this window right here by this room. So we know everything. When everything goes wrong, we know. This is my dog in the safe room with her earphones. This is the dog, okay? This is like a regular picture now. Thank God they don't do so many, but when they fire at Sderot or at Netivot, this is how it looks with the Iron Dome intersecting it. It looks, I don't know if you can see, it looks very pretty with all the sky looks very pretty. We are in that. We see every helicopter that goes with someone that is wounded. We see every helicopter that goes towards that area. We see it's just a daily, constant reminder of where we are.
Okay, we're in the diaspora. And the question that I see is, what, as a volunteer, if we come to Israel, how can we help?
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll say a few things.
Please.
Okay. First of all, just come. Most of my cousins came from Canada, and it's just nice to have the support of your family. Of course, people in Tel Aviv and in Jerusalem that have bed and breakfast installations or hotels are really happy to see tourists, but it's just this warm feeling of someone that cares. It's very important. If you have good skills and you want to volunteer, there are plenty of things people can do. Volunteering in farms, volunteering in medical health, volunteering in many, many, many ways. But just coming and showing your support and going to Tel Aviv or just being there is also something very important. And the other thing is, of course, be a good advocate of Israel and the Jews. Don't agree to hear all the terrible things that we're hearing about the Jews. And be proud of the fact that you're a Jew. And you can't avoid it. I learned it when I was 4 years old. I knew I was a Jew, but I learned that it's a bad thing when I was 4 years old. It was in the US. And my mom said to me, yes, some people think that being a Jew is not a good thing. And so from that moment on, I understood that it's part of my fight. You can't hide it from your children. They have to understand that being a Jew is not trivial. And help us say that we are so few. 15 million in this world.
Mexico seems to think that Jews are good. They voted for a president.
True. They don't care. They wanted a good president. They knew it should be a woman and Jewish, of course. There we go.
We're proud of you all. We're all proud of you all.
Hadass, what would you have to say about
Yes, I also want to add that be proud being a Jew, and for the sake of your children being a Jew, and there's no time to hide it. Even now, never hide that you are a Jew. Be proud. And of course, and also you can come and celebrate bar mitzvahs in Israel, and come celebrate with us, with the soldiers. You're very welcomed. Yeah.
Well, we definitely all support you, and that's why we're on this call. Robin, I know you're bursting with a question. Go ahead.
I'm looking at my list. Just give me one sec.
Yeah, let's just see if there's
Well,
any-
While you're looking at your list, Robin, I'm just going to quickly say
Go ahead.
that unfortunately the new president in Mexico is incredibly anti-Israel. So she is Jewish, but apparently she's been awful for the Jewish community there, and she is very, very anti-Israel, anti-Zionist. So it's not as great as we would like it to be.
So my question for Hadass and Tal that I wanted to know is whether you have questions of us, because you have a particular vantage point, and is there anything that you're curious about that we might be able to answer for you?
I wanted to ask just what is the next step for you, and how you're going to fight what's going on in campuses, and besides doing conversations that are very important, just what is your next step?
I'm going to take the liberty of answering. There are a lot of people on this call who are actively involved in what I'm about to describe, but I will share with you that this organization has seen a very significant number of volunteers come forward who were previously uninvolved, who want to fight anti-Semitism. And so nationally, the organization, this series is part of a national priority to focus on fighting anti-Semitism. There are 2 other programs coming up. One is going to be with Deborah Lyons, who's the special envoy for anti-Semitism for Canada. And the other, I'm sorry, Debbie, remind me of the other person's name who works for the United Nations.
Joan Lurie
is going to be speaking as well. So that's in order to provide content nationally. In addition, in Toronto, we're working in collaboration with 4 or 5 other organizations, including the national organization, to screen Sheryl Sandberg's new documentary. And we have a message from her. We're going to have that program followed by very significant panel of experts, politically, mental health wise, and our goal is to get thousands of people across the country to watch that documentary. And that project is currently in the works. We have a meeting tomorrow, actually, and there's a lot of interest generated. And it's an unprecedented collaboration because we feel that we can scale our reach and our breadth by getting significant Jewish women's national organizations to participate. So that's a project that's in the works. We also have started an education program within our own organization where we're inviting people from the community to speak on a regular basis, to just share their experiences around either advocating, fighting, or experiences of anti-Semitism, just to enable our community to understand what's going on. And there's a volunteer also who has been curating a list of 3 things that you can do. And so she's coordinating that, and we're blasting that out to our members and the community every 2 weeks, which involves attending a demonstration, signing a petition, whatever it happens to be in the moment. And so that's how our organization, both nationally and locally, is responding. And we're all doing the best that we can. Many of us on this call have attended the demonstrations in Washington and Toronto and Ottawa, all over across the country. And so those are some examples of things that we're doing and really trying to do as much as we possibly can.
Oh, it's amazing.
How about you, Tal? Do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you think that these kind of events will change the way American, North American, Canadian Jews would educate their children.
It's a great
Do you
question.
think it will have an impact?
So I don't know if Debbie or Naomi or someone else would like to answer that question.
I can speak up for a minute. I think it has impacted. I think that a lot of people are far more interested in having their children more involved in being a little bit less secular and a little bit more responsible for being a Jew. And I know in my family, my children have now started attending Shabbat services, with their friends at synagogues that are hosting those kind of evenings, and like on Friday nights, and they're, where they were not interested in that before, all of a sudden they are very much more interested in it because of those kind of events. I think it did trigger a pride that they had sort of taken for granted.
Right.
So, Debbie, read the comment. It's an important comment that was made.
Yes, this is a comment that people in Toronto are doing things. If you check the groups, B'nai B'rith, the Simon Wiesenthal, Stand With Us, CAEF. International Council of Jewish.
A ton of grassroots initiatives, small groups, previously unaffiliated people who have started up new initiatives, new things, and you see a renewed connection to Jewish community and a renewed activism that is certainly unprecedented for as long as I've worked in the Jewish community. And so I find that an interesting thing to observe.
Well, also the working together, the collaboration
More
has
collaboration, yes.
really increased. So we're all on the same side. We're all trying to help the image of Israel and the image of Jews in general.
Yeah, and last comment, I think you might want to wrap up because there's 2 minutes left, but somebody just said in the chat, and this is correct. Every year there's a walk with Israel. It's an annual event. It's been going on in Toronto and really around North American communities for 50, 60 years. And so this year, the Walk with Israel, this year, they're expecting more people than they've ever expected ever in the history of the walk. There's a tremendous sense of togetherness within the Jewish community. And so again, I think that that's a positive outcome of a terrible situation.
Absolutely.
Wow, it's amazing to hear.
Yeah,
Who's
I'm
Debbie?
also
Who's-
happy
I
to
guess-
hear about that.
There's just a
Who's
couple.
wrapping?
I'm just going to mention a couple other questions or comments that people made. Engaging the government at all levels, we are trying to engage. And the university presidents, we're writing letters to them. Also, we're very involved with the police. Just to make people aware, ARZA Canada has developed a new Israel curriculum for supplementary schools. That's after school and Sunday programs at Reform schools. And they're looking at Israel without rose-colored glasses and instilling pride in our students. So,
Yeah.
and with that, I think we're going to wrap up. Who was Eva going to chat? Eva, hi.
Yeah. So it is my pleasure to do the thank you. My name is Eva Karpati, and I'm one of the VPs of National Council of Jewish Women of Canada. And I just want to, first of all, thank Robin for orchestrating this, putting together this really powerful afternoon. Yes, a big round of applause to Robin. Hadass and Tal, it breaks my heart. I've wanted to cry ever since I've seen your face on the screen, I think, as all of us have. And, you know, that our questions are about what can we do here, that for you, it's not a question. And again, the whole idea that you are the front line, there is no question what you are doing, what you have to do. And that also like breaks all our heart. And I can barely talk, but I just want you to know that every single person on this call, and even those who weren't, we're here for you. We are with you. And I know personally, I look forward to the time when we can have you again, but just talking about the amazing professional work you do, not fighting the fight that you have to do. So really, from deep in my heart, on behalf of everybody, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.